When we talk about exercise and underweight and things too, if you're underweight or too lean, this can also affect your fertility, because as humans, we're designed to kind of shut down and focus on survival if our body weight gets too low. So people who are underweight or exercising too much can have problems with their menstrual cycle and ovulation. What we're aiming for is moderate exercise. We know that too much or too little can be detrimental to fertility. So we're aiming for people to be fit and healthy without being ultra athletes or also couch potatoes. And it's excellent for stress relief as well, which is a big thing for people undergoing fertility treatment and struggling to have a baby. It can be really helpful to get out some of that stress and get those good endorphins from exercise. As well, if you are trying to get rid of a few kilos to help with your fertility, it also helps with overall health, cholesterol, and fitness. Choose something that you enjoy. Don't choose a sport or get a gym membership or something. You know you just won't continue it. Look around to keep your fitness. So eating a healthy diet in the 3 months before conceiving can help to protect DNA, promote sperm health, and encourage and support a healthy libido. Sperm production, essentially sperm are produced every 3 months or so, the turnover. So you can have a really good impact on working on your sperm health by dietary and lifestyle interventions. And with women, we know that you're already born with all the eggs that you're ever going to have, but it does help to prepare your body for the physiological demands of a pregnancy. So it's a good idea for both to really look at your lifestyle and your diet if you are planning on having a baby. And recent research has suggested that following a Mediterranean style dietary pattern increases the chances of conception. And what antioxidants we know for fertility, alcohol is not a great idea, so cutting down as much as you can, choose calories alternatives is a good idea. What you want to avoid as much as possible on the Mediterranean style diet are processed foods and treat foods. So processed foods we know give us a lot of sugar, salt, preservatives, calories, unhealthy fats, but they're not really good and ill health. So reducing these as much as possible is great. And treat foods, we've sort of lost the ability to judge a little bit what is a treat. A treat food is not something you do every day and as part of your regular diet. So it's trying to keep a balanced diet at least. 80% of the foods you eat are not out of a packet and they're not treat foods. Basically choosing sort of plant-based foods, a bit of lean protein here and there. I'll mention here that I haven't mentioned all the other diets following, and that's for good reason, such as diets like paleo diet, ketogenic diet, gluten-free, wheat-free, dairy-free, all these sort of diets that you hear a lot about in the media. And I'm not really mentioning them because there isn't real, credible scientific evidence that these diets are either good for fertility or that they're going to help you health or your weight long term. Many of the diet effects to them, such as eating root and vegetables and cutting out some of the rubbish, but they can be too restrictive overall, and I'd be really wary of anything that cuts out whole food groups. The Mediterranean style diet doesn't cut out any whole food groups. It's a well-balanced pattern, and it's proven to be really beneficial in a lot of other lifestyle diseases such as heart disease and diabetes, and even things like the risk of Alzheimer's. So it's not going to do you any harm. So it's a follow. So the general dietary guidelines, these are kind of tips and tricks for men and for women who are trying to conceive or who might be undergoing fertility treatment. So choosing lean protein is a really good idea. Things like taking the chicken skin off, laying the fat off the meat, and choosing lean and stuff. Having some eggs and dairy and plant-based proteins as well. So aiming for a protein source at each meal. That might be milk or yogurt or something at your breakfast. Might be eggs on toast for lunch. Could be a plant-based protein like chickpea and salad for dinner. It could be fish or chicken, anything like this. People in New Zealand tend to be focused a lot on increasing protein, but that's not actually something that we're deficient in. So as long as you're having a bit here and there, you're probably having enough. Reduce or avoid saturated fats if you can, and saturated fats are the ones that are the animal, dairy, and coconut-based fats. And these are the ones that we know increase cholesterol and they increase the risk of diabetes and heart disease. Trans fat as well. We don't have a heck of a lot of trans fats in New Zealand. We hear a lot about them in the States, and they are terrible for you. But in New Zealand, our main issue is saturated fat. So concentrating on getting that down is a good idea. You do want to ensure that you're having healthy fat in your diet. I'm not saying to try and cut out fats or have a hugely low-fat diet or anything like this. You want to just make sure that the fats you're having are ones that are beneficial for you. So olive oil, other vegetable oils that are liquid at room temperature, nuts and seeds and avocados, all a good idea. Just watch the portion. I have a lot of women in my clinic who will eat half an avocado in one sitting, but they're struggling with weight gain. So you want to be aware that those foods, they are really good for us, but really good for us in small amounts. And things like not having handfuls of nuts, etc., is a good idea as well. Reducing or avoiding sugars and refined carbohydrates, and choosing whole grain carbohydrates instead. So along with the energy that you need in your diet, you're also getting the vitamins and minerals and a bit of fibre as well, rather than just the calories. Sugar goes by many names as well. Watch out for products that say things like honey or agave syrup, treacle, all those sort of words. They're just another word for sugar. Your body cannot really tell the difference between sugar from one source or plain white sugar. It's going to do a similar thing in your body with your insulin response and storing of its fat, etc. So just keep them all to a minimum. Avoiding the processed foods, like I said before, these tend to be high in unhealthy fats and sugar, salt, additives, colourings, and preservatives. So avoiding things that come in packets is actually quite a good start. Eat plenty of antioxidant-rich foods. So I'm just trying to find out. Oh, here we are. I've got my notes down the wrong way. Plenty of antioxidant-rich foods, including vegetables and fruits. So scrubbing, washing, and peeling to reduce any sort of pesticide residues. You don't need to buy organic. Nutritionally, it's generally considered to be pretty similar. And there's been studies which have shown the nutritional content is pretty comparable between the two, as long as you are scrubbing, washing, and peeling to get off any residues. Drink plenty of plain water or alternatives like fruit-based herbal tea. And you can also, in summer, do things like soda water and lemon, or having your fruit-based tea and steeping it and putting it in the fridge later to have a cold drink. Limiting alcohol as much as possible, which you probably hear from every presenter this week, and quitting smoking, because cigarette smoking halves the chance of pregnancy per month. And that's for people trying to conceive without fertility treatment and those undergoing fertility treatment. Caffeine is a tricky one. We do say limit caffeine and choosing decaffeinated options for any more than 1 or 2 drinks a day. So if you're having a normal coffee, then maybe for the rest of the day, if you want more coffee, you choose the decaffeinated options so that you're not getting a really high caffeine intake. There are other foods as well that contain caffeine as well, like chocolate, a lot of soft drinks, and energy drinks as well. Energy drinks, not my favourite thing at the best of times, but caffeine content and the sugar content are both really high. Caffeine, it's not guaranteed, we don't know whether it's a conclusive negative effect on fertility. We think that there is a negative effect. So a lot of organisations have come out to say, well, having more than maybe 200 or 300 milligrams per day is detrimental, and we think that that's detrimental in pregnancy, especially early pregnancy as well, and possibly linked to things like increasing the risk of early miscarriage. So there's approximately 100 milligrams of caffeine in a normal cup of coffee. So I sort of say 1 or 2 normal drinks a day would be okay, but more than that, I do, just to be on the safe side. I did some research back, it feels like a long time ago now, 2010 and 11, and I looked at the nutritional intake of 250 women having IVF treatment in New Zealand, and I did that with the Fertility Associates in Auckland and in Hamilton. And there was no miracle food that we found that would increase the chances of pregnancy with the IVF. But what my study did show is that women still aren't making the most basic dietary and lifestyle improvements that the clinics are recommending. So women having IVF were still having too much saturated fat, not enough fibre, not enough calcium, and many of them also weren't having enough folic acid. The recommendation in New Zealand is generally for 800 micrograms per day. Many women were also not following the advice about caffeine and alcohol. And this general dietary advice, it's the best we've got at the moment. And those changes would be ideal to make rather than following the latest fad diet, which seemed to be something that was more popular than following the really basic, sensible advice. In terms of if we look at nutrients, folate and folic acid are particularly important for both women and men. So men with low folate levels had increased risk of chromosomally abnormal sperm, and low maternal folate levels can increase the risk of neural tube defects, which include things like spina bifida. Folate is what it's called when it's from food or in the body, and folic acid is the synthetic form that's in your supplements. That's the difference between those two words, the folic versus the folic acid, folate versus folic acid. Folate is found in your diet and green leafy vegetables, especially spinach, things like asparagus and citrus fruits, beans, kidney beans, liver, lentils and chickpeas all contain a bit. So trying to increase your vegetable intake and fruit intake is a good place to start. But women planning a pregnancy need to take a folic acid supplement to achieve the levels necessary to reduce the risk of neural tube defects. So getting the amount that the Ministry of Health recommends to limit your risk of neural tube defects, it does require you to take a supplement as well as focus on your diet. Don't just take the supplement and assume, oh, I'm a supplement, I don't need to worry about my diet at all. You want to do both. The health recommendation is for 800 micrograms per day of folic acid or 5,000 micrograms a day if you fit into certain criteria. Those might include things like being BMI of over 30, taking certain medications such as epilepsy medications, or if you've got a family history of a neural tube defect. So some women will get given a higher dose by their GP or their fertility specialist. So most people take that 800 micrograms and they take it for at least 4 weeks prior to trying for a baby so that you've got a good level of folate in your body before you're starting to grow that baby. Zinc is widely available in the food supply, and having a zinc deficiency can reduce testosterone levels. Zinc supplementation has been shown to raise testosterone, in some cases improve fertility. Inadequate zinc intakes are relatively common in both men and women. When I looked at the latest stats, it was 25% have a slightly inadequate intake under the recommended daily intake. And for men, that was a bit higher. It was about 40% for men and a little bit lower at around 11% for women. So it's something that men should focus a bit more on. It's best absorbed from animal products rather than plant foods. And foods rich in zinc are seafood, and particularly oysters, lean red meat, chicken, whole grain cereals, beans, lentils and seeds, and dairy products. Vitamin B12 may increase sperm counts. Vegetarians and vegans are at higher risk of vitamin B12 deficiency, and that's because B12, our best sources come from dairy and animal products. So if you're cutting out all dairy and all animal products, then you probably will need a vitamin B12 injection every once in a while from your GP, just to make sure that you've got enough. And some foods claim to be a good source of vitamin B12, but it might be in a form that's not actually absorbed by humans. And in that category is spirulina, which I see a lot of people taking to get more B12. That's actually not absorbed. Foods high in B12 are the meat, the milk, the eggs, and some yeast extracts as well. The inadequate intake, sorry, I'll of B12 is lower than you probably think as well. It's only around 1.3% of the population, but around 14% of females. So it's not a big problem, but it's something to be considerate about, especially if you're vegan or vegetarian. Vitamin C protects sperm from oxidative damage. So vitamin C is a good antioxidant. It does get reduced a lot by cooking and processing. And so it is important to eat some vitamin C sources raw. Fruit and vegetables are our best sources of vitamin C. So as long as you're having a couple of bits of fruit a day, or you're having some salad vegetables as well as all those vegetables and things too, then you're probably getting enough vitamin C. Only 1 or 2% of the population have an inadequate intake of vitamin C. L-carnitine is necessary for sperm cells to function normally. Supplementing with this may help to normalise sperm motility in men with a low sperm quality. And the foods rich in L-carnitine are meat, fish, poultry, and milk. CoQ10, you've heard of. It acts as an antioxidant and protects the sperm cells from damage. And it does also have a possible role in egg quality as well, especially for aging women or women with a low AMH level. The foods rich in CoQ10 are oily fish, so fresh sardines and mackerel, eggs, nuts, soy, sesame, and some vegetables as well. Beta-carotene and lycopene may improve sperm concentration and motility. And beta-carotene comes from egg yolks and yellow and orange foods such as carrot and pumpkin. It's a form of vitamin A. And lycopene is found in tomatoes and tomato-based sources. So all these things are what we recommend to include in your diet if you're heading towards a more Mediterranean pattern anyway. Selenium, that's an important nutrient for sperm health as well. You may have heard that New Zealand soils are low in selenium, and that's true. And the foods that we grow in our soils here in New Zealand are, by that result, also low in selenium. So it's something that is worth thinking about. A lot of fertility supplements do contain a bit of selenium to try and offset that. Food sources of selenium include cereals, milk, meat, fish, eggs, and nuts, and particularly Brazil nuts. So having 3 or 4 Brazil nuts a day gives you a good intake of selenium. Essential fatty acids are also important for the formation of sperm, and those include ALA, which comes from plants. Then you've got your long chain sort of omega-3 fatty acids, which are the ones in oily fish, and that's your EPA, your DHA, and your DPA. So the best way to get these, rather than take a fish oil supplement, is actually to eat oily fish. If you don't eat oily fish, in that case, you might look at a pregnancy appropriate omega-3 supplement. Good sources of the plant essential fatty acid ALA are linseeds, sometimes called flax seeds, canola oil, legumes, soybeans, and walnuts. So consuming a wide variety of foods from 4 food groups is the best way to ensure that you meet your nutritional needs. And evidence-based nutritional supplementation also plays a role in growing a healthy baby. So that's taking your folic acid, and once you find out you're pregnant, you take 150 micrograms of iodine as well, which in New Zealand is a registered medicine, and it's called NeuroCare, and that comes from your GP or your fertility specialist. I did see a good quote that I thought I'd include at the end as well here, by a food writer called Michael Pollan, and he wrote in the New York Times a few years ago, and he spent his adult life studying different diets and trying to work out what would be the most healthy. And what he's figured out at the end of all of this is this quote that says, "Eat food, not too much, mostly plants. That, more or less, is the short answer to the supposedly incredibly complicated and confusing question of what we humans should eat in order to be maximally healthy." And I thought that really sums it up, is that what we're saying is eat real food, don't eat too much, keep the sizes under control, and try and focus on having foods that are mainly plant-based. So when to seek help with the fertility treatment? If you've had no luck so far, it depends on your age as to what your plan might be next. So make a plan and take timely action. Don't wait around with your head in the sand. If you're under 35 and you're female, see your GP after 12 months trying to conceive. If you're between 35 and 40, that time shortens to 9 months. And if you're over 40, try and see your GP after 6 months of trying if you've had no luck. And if you meet the eligibility criteria, your GP can refer you to the fertility specialist, or you can just make private appointments technically. So are there any questions? Thank you, Anita. Everyone's frantically typing at once. Sorry, I'm not ignoring questions. I'm just waiting till I see what they are in the chat. If you're wondering, I can't see them yet. Oh, here we are. Regarding the BMI cutoff of 32, is there any room to make exceptions, such as if you have a high muscle mass or bone density? Unfortunately, as far as I'm aware, no. I think that they work it out simply just on your height and your weight without taking other things into consideration. That's something that I probably would ask your fertility specialist. It's more of an issue with the CPAC funding, which I don't deal with as much. The nurses and the doctors deal with that more. As far as I know, you have to get your actual weight in kilograms under that BMI threshold of 32. I currently have a BMI above 34 and live with PCOS. I really struggle to lose weight. Is there anything I should be avoiding in any of the food groups? I've heard that dairy isn't good for people. No, there's no particular food group you should be avoiding. For polycystic ovarian syndrome, it does really help to get your saturated fat down even more than most people, because people with PCOS tend to store weight more around the middle. And that tends to make you more insulin resistant, puts you more at risk of things like developing diabetes as well. So it's trying to get your saturated fat level down as much as possible and substitute that with healthy fats. The main thing with PCOS is to try and get the weight down. And I know that's very tough. So really focusing on portion sizes, making sure you have, I always say to people, try and have whole grain carbohydrate about the size of your fist or less, and that's once it's cooked, already cooked. Trying to have sort of that protein around the size of the palm of your hand, and then filling up the rest of your plate with vegetables, and that goes for your lunch and your dinner meal if you can. And if you're extra hungry, filling up on more of those vegetables rather than going back for more carbohydrate or more protein as well. Unfortunately, there's no kind of easy fix. It's portion size, portion size, portion size, reducing the frequency of treat foods as well, really watching what you're drinking. That can be a huge source of calories, and just keeping that exercise up, putting it in, and just don't stop doing the exercise. It will help, even if it helps even with fat distribution. It can help with your insulin resistance as well. The best or healthiest ways to gain weight. Yep, that's a hard one as well. People always talk about how hard it is to lose weight, but it can actually be really tough for people to gain weight as well. So the best way to gain weight is to add more of the healthy fats into your diet. So that was the ones I was talking about, your olive oils, your liquid oils, nuts, and avocado. People who are trying to gain weight, you want to have more of those. So whereas I normally say to people, don't have 1 or 2 tablespoons of nuts or seeds as a snack, people trying to gain weight, they can go over and above that bigger portion. Adding calories into things like if you had cooked vegetables or salad, drizzling a bit of oil on there, or using an oil-based dressing to try and increase the calorie content. You don't really want to be increasing the calories from just healthy foods. I mean, things like chocolate and chips and takeaways, they will increase your weight. They also will increase your cholesterol and make you more likely to be having too much of that saturated fat that we're actually trying to reduce. So in those healthy kind of is a good idea to increase the energy density of your food without feeling like you have to eat a whole lot more. But that said, the other is to increase when you've got your increase your energy density, also got to increase your food intake overall. So looking at having 3 meals and 3 snacks every day if you're trying to gain weight. So you need to make sure that you're not missing meals or having too little amount of activity that you're doing as well. I hope that answers that one. Things like having a fruit-based berry smoothie or liquid. So having a smoothie between meals or after your dinner or something can actually help as well. This one, so treatment is not available if your BMI is over 32. What we're saying is that publicly funded treatment is not available if your BMI is over 32. So people can go and pay for private treatment at any BMI, but if you're wanting to get the Ministry of Health funding for your fertility treatment, then your BMI does need to be under 32. As far as I'm aware, that goes for everyone. I'm not sure. As I said before, I don't necessarily agree with, I don't necessarily get involved in the funding allocation or anything. So check with your nurse and your fertility specialist whether there's any exemptions, but as far as I'm aware, there's not really. Yes, the fat is all around the middle. Yep. So in terms of that, it's cardio and increasing your muscle mass as well. So things like doing your weights and stuff, it sounds silly, but if you're more muscular, then even when you're sitting around on the couch or anything, if you've got more muscle in your body from being stronger, then you actually have a higher metabolism. So it's a really good thing to get more strong as well. I have a BMI of 20 and have been diagnosed with PCOS and endo. Are there any key food group recommendations for this scenario? Not necessarily. It's just that Mediterranean style diet is actually what we think can be quite helpful as well. So it's choosing those lots of fruit and vegetables and liquid oils and not all that unhealthy saturated fat as well. For endometriosis, it does depend. Some people who have a lot of pain and pelvic symptoms as well, there is some evidence that a FODMAP diet may help with controlling symptoms. I've worked with a few people in the clinic putting them onto that sort of a diet and had mixed success. Works well for people with irritable bowel syndrome as well. It's a bit of a funny diet. You start off, you need quite a lot of nutritional support with it. It's not just something that I'd recommend going and trying to do yourself. It's fiddly, but it can help people with really painful endometriosis. Janice has asked, is it best to eat full fat dairy or low fat for optimal fertility? This is an interesting one. The evidence is coming out and it's a bit mixed. So at the moment, I'm not necessarily saying what I used to say of have trim milk or calci-trim and choose the low fat of everything. I think a moderate fat level is probably where I'm sitting with recommendations at the moment because we just don't know. I would have the highest fat products, so things like a full fat Greek yogurt can be up to sort of 10% fat, and most of that is saturated because it's animal fat. So they choose something like a reduced fat Greek yogurt so that you're having some fat in case it is good for us, and you're not having too much fat in case it's still bad for us. So it's just that meat in the middle at the moment before they do more research and we actually find out what the answer is. I myself do still recommend the milk rather than the blue milk and things. So you get more calcium and more protein in a lighter milk compared to a standard fat. I have 2 more kilos to lose before I have a BMI of 25. In terms of saturated fats, what are the stats of lean red meat compared to poultry? Yes, it depends on the cut of meat that you are choosing. So lean red meat still will have more saturated fat through the meat than poultry will, but you have reduced the saturated fat if you cut off the fat from the edge of the meat. You take the skin off the chicken. Meat, for meat, you probably still the poultry would be lower in fat than the Oh, thank you very much. Sorry about my cat episode at the start. It's a bit embarrassing. Thank you very much. I'll end the event now. Good luck, everyone.